Okay, here we are with the cast and team of the Bedroom Summit. The playwright, Scott Sickles, and Steve Petrillo, the director, and the cast. One of the first things I want to do is check in with everybody. We've had in the past, during the stage readings, various different reactions. We've had some people who were very inspired to write plays, said that their burden was lifted. We've also had some people who were triggered and very upset and came away feeling like they had a hard time dealing with some of the emotions that were stirred up in them. So I did just want to check in with everybody and feel, just see how they were affected by the experience. Just we going to go with you first.
I'm fine, thank you. I was just so pleased to actually finally see it on its feet and see it done so incredibly well. That was my primary emotion. And even though there are aspects of this story that are very close to me personally, I have enough distance from them to be able to look at it as a work of fiction, and that was important. So I was just very pleased with how it went.
That's nice to hear. And go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Anthony Notarile. I play Justin in the Bedroom Summit, and the process of rehearsing and obviously performing the play that night, I feel like I learned a lot about myself as an actor through it, because it's obviously a very intimate play, a lot of physicality, a lot of intimacy that I never had really experienced on set before. So I feel like there was a lot of growing as an actor that I did over the rehearsal process, and a lot of learning really how to dive into those intimate scenes, and so it was definitely a fun process for me. And then being in the play when we actually performed it, I was happy with the product, or the final product of it, which is always important. So it was a great experience for me.
Hi, I'm Mike Rose. I play Boyd. This is kind of the beast of new work. It's really rewarding just to be able to infinitely discuss and flesh out and talk about topics that you're never really going to get conclusive, there's not a whole lot of finality to new work or work at all. You're never gonna feel like you solved it, or you've put all the pieces together. You're always gonna be thinking when you leave, and that's exactly what this play was for me. It's still rattled by the topic and the idea, specifically the idea of consent versus coercion, which is something that I remember you discussed, and that's something that I left with as a really interesting topic in the Me Too movement, considering that's where the movement is going now that we're cutting through very obvious topics or very obvious circumstances, and we're getting to what is considered now gray area and degraying gray areas that shouldn't be gray areas. And so people who see the show leave the show with thinking and pondering and thinking about their own morals, and I also was affected that way by doing this.
That's a very good point. Steve?
I'm so glad he said something in reference to the finished product, because for me, one of the most, and I only realized it to verbalize it right now when you said that, even though I was sort of aware of it as it was happening, was the most important part for me, or the thing that stuck with me most, was the process of putting this play on. Was so many facets and so many aspects of it that affected me, affected everything about it. Because I've never done anything like this before. I've never worked the way that I did with actors before in situations like this. That was a new experience for me. And the umbrella of Me Too on top of it made me, as a director and as a person and as a man, uber aware, uber sensitive to every moment or everything, every word I said, every direction I gave, or talk we had and everything. I became so much more meticulous in how I spoke, how I was, how I directed, how I, dialogued with the actors and everything. So the process of working on this was huge, and that's what sticks with me. The product was terrific, and these two guys were just terrific. So I was very, pleased and grateful, and the play just, I can relate to aspects of the play as well, and we may talk about those things later, but
Yeah,
but-
I definitely do want to
Yeah.
get back to that
But the
and
idea was
the
the
approach
process.
of intimacy training. I just want to ask a quick question. Did it affect you on an emotional level at all? The evening itself, or any of the topic subject matter?
If we talk about the whole evening, and I'll include the bedroom summit as well, of course, yes, there were lots of moments where I was surprised at how it affected me. Even my own piece that I worked on, maybe not a tear or something, but the idea, but an emotion came to me when you start to feel in real time, watching it, what the characters are having to deal with, and how it, but that's an individual thing because of what you can relate to, either from when I was the character's age, myself, or just a man, growing up gay in general. So I had personal experiences along the way with that. In terms of the evening as a whole, there were some wonderful surprises that were very effective. Am I allowed to talk about other pieces?
Sure,
Or
of
whatever?
course,
I mean,
yeah.
like Wounded Warrior and the wife was very moving, especially in the ending when she finally had to, kind of cut ties with her husband, and just the unfolding of that, and seeing someone go in real time go through that moment, and the realization that her whole world is changing right there at that moment for good. That was a very effective moment for me, personally. So I mean, things like that stick with me.
Can we just talk about, were any of you surprised about the audience response, or what did you feel about the audience feedback, especially in the talk back? Was there anything that surprised you, or?
I mean, I was glad that the feedback was very positive, and because it doesn't deal with what one would consider a standard Me Too situation. I was very pleased that when you asked if anyone, if people felt this was appropriate to the theme, they unanimously said yes. They understood, yes, this is a Me Too play. It's just not the most orthodox Me Too play. So that's the thing that I was really most concerned about, because I'm glad that they took it in and were moved by it in the many ways that they were. That was very gratifying. But really, I just wanted to make sure that that it was relevant, because I knew why I thought it was relevant. I think we had the same thought. Well, yes, we know why we think this was relevant, but other people may have disagreed, and fortunately no one did. So that was good.
Maybe you can address that, extrapolate a little more about what makes this a
Well,
Me Too play
sure,
for a moment,
because-
and then you can add on that to Mike, then that whole gray area idea a little more after Scott has
Cool.
said
Sure.
as well.
Yeah. Because the play is about two boys. They're in high school. Boyd and Justin, and Justin is Boyd's bully, and he's been out hounding him all day. The play begins when when Boyd comes home to find Justin waiting for him in his bedroom, and there is a certain amount of you could call it seduction, you could call it coercion. There is a physical power play that happens between the two boys. Justin is very clear: I will stop if you want me to stop, and Boyd does not necessarily stop him from doing a number of things. but there are limits. And what really makes this a Me Too play more than those things even is that ultimately Justin wants a relationship with Boyd that Boyd is not willing to have. And Justin's deal is, all right, well, if you don't have this relationship with me, I will make your life a living hell until we are done with school. He even says that there is not a locker that I will not shove you into. So basically, the Me Too aspect of it is a physical and sexual coercion to get this person to basically love him back the way he wants to be loved, to have a relationship. And by extension, you have you have people in the corporate world. I want you to have this relationship with me, and if you don't, there will be consequences. And that happens in many ways. In this sort of high school boy microcosmic way, that's what this is dealing with, and I think that's how it grounded to the topic. So,
And
yeah.
and I'm just going to add before we
Yeah.
toss it over to Mike, that it's still all about the power
Mm-hmm.
and who has it, who has more of it.
Yeah. And the
then
different kinds of power.
Different kinds of power, and then it shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though, and I'm going to paraphrase something
Sure.
that you and I talked about in terms of, and that you talked about certainly, is that nobody wins here ultimately in getting what they really want in a not sexual as much as just in a relationship kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
They both actually want the same thing in it ultimately, but I think that Boyd actually the power shifts to Boyd at the end, but he doesn't get what he wants ultimately, but he takes control of his destiny, if you will, after this whole incident happens, which I think is wonderful. But in terms of them not getting what they want, you and I spoke about that neither one of them ultimately is able to come out of the closet or able to be themselves or able to embrace themselves or be who they are in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's where they didn't win, but ultimately.
And just for people who have not seen the play, the given circumstances are that Justin does want a romantic relationship with Boyd, and if Boyd agrees to that, then Justin, then they will come out as a couple, and Justin will just simply take care of anyone who opposes them, as opposed to Boyd, who does not want. Yet he is attracted to Justin. He, in his own way, may even love Justin, but he just cannot abide being gay. So Justin is dealing with all this social homophobia that he wants to overcome, and by the same token, Boyd is dealing with all of this internal homophobia that he wants to succumb to. And so eventually Boyd actually does get what he wants. He does not want to be gay. He does not want to be in this relationship, even though everything just emotionally and sexually, yes, he wants that, but he's putting a stop to it. So ultimately, Boyd has the power, and Boyd does get what he wants. It's just that it's the very thing that's going to make everyone miserable.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Boyd definitely picks the route that, Boyd doesn't come out in the end, but Boyd doesn't come out under the circumstances that he was put in.
Mm-hmm.
Because the circumstances that Boyd's put in the circumstances of the play, I think Boyd actually, I think in that moment takes the most control of his identity and his sexuality in that moment by saying no to the type of, the sexual relationship he wants. I say sexual meaning sexuality, meaning with a man. He doesn't want to be in a relationship in which he feels like he has to be taken care of. I mean, that's a huge part of we keep saying the word Me Too, but we're really talking about rape culture. That's a huge point of rape culture is a power play. And I think a huge point of this, what I take out of this play is someone who has power and doesn't use it with the privilege that they have. The privilege to power is taking responsibility for your power which is the dynamic between Justin and Boyd, is that Justin has the power and has the facility to come out safely, and Boyd doesn't, and Boyd isn't respected for that. And so, like, you know, that's like the takeaway I get out of this play, is that Boyd in the end does take the control, and Boyd doesn't come out, but I don't think Boyd should come out in that circumstance, because that's the formation of a toxic relationship. I was saying,
yeah, it would be under his control still.
Yeah.
I mean,
It would
that's
be,
like textbook toxic relationship. I was saying in rehearsal once, if they get together, there's a whole play behind that. There's a whole play of them going through high school and then the breakup happening 20 minutes later, like in like a one act, because, and then that's like a new story, is like the formation of this toxic relationship in the perfect pieces that create a toxic relationship. Someone in power and someone who has none, and someone who offers protection has no power, right? Like, because you have power, but this Boyd doesn't know that. Like, Boyd doesn't know where his power is, and you know, it's the perfect
until he does.
Until he realizes like he can say no, but then, you know, that brings to the new topic, like, it's no longer no means no in this world, it's yes means yes. Which is another point of the play, is that Boyd never says no, but Boyd never says yes. And that is another, and there it is. I mean, that's another huge part of rape culture today, because I'd say, what, in the 50s, when, you know, the women's rights was in this, not started the topic of rape culture, it's always been around, but at that point it was, you know, yes means yes, or no means no. And today, we have certain people who are being outed, not because it was a plain case of this person raped or sexually assaulted me, is that this person coerced me into a circumstance I was not comfortable with. You know, Aziz Ansari was recently brought forward by a woman he went on a date with, because he brought her back to his apartment, and then what she said was that he made her do things she was not comfortable with. That was a yes means yes situation. She never said yes, but she never said no. But consent is yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, what I think the most fascinating part of this play for me, especially in Boyd's circumstances, it's super contemporary to the Me Too movement where we are now, as opposed to where we were like 15 years ago.
Wonderfully said.
Yeah.
Who needs